Hello everyone, I am super excited. We are getting to a very special part in our journey, talking about internal and external obstacles on the road towards our goal, on the road to freedom, financial freedom, doing the thing that you love, on the road of achieving any personally meaningful thing for you. You are absolutely going to encounter internal and external obstacles. Self-help culture tells us that everything is within us and there are no obstacles in the world outside of us. This is not entirely true. While external obstacles are not so important and they're smaller in number, there are some obstacles which we don't have control over, and we'll talk about them in another video. But right now, I would like to pay special attention to the internal obstacles, which are known in pop culture as limiting beliefs. I would like to think of limiting beliefs, not just beliefs, but also ideas that we have about who we are, what we are capable of, and what we deserve. Ideas that also generate feelings and moods, they generate behavior, and they also might become a reason for some illnesses. So I would like to call this the personal myth, the constellation of our beliefs and ideas about ourselves and the world, including prejudice, our behaviors and habits, and our moods and emotions. So, how is the personal myth generated? Well, first of all, research shows that even when the baby is in the mother's womb, the baby is still getting the thoughts and the feelings of the mother. When we are born to a family, we usually take the beliefs of this family, and when we're born to a culture or community, we also take the beliefs of this culture and community. Now, those beliefs are not necessarily bad, however, they might not serve us as we progress towards our goal. Let me give you an example. I used to work with a girl who was creating her personal brand and her resume, and they were all very dull, very plain. And when we started exploring her talents, she said she believed she has no talents. As we dug deeper, it turned out that as she was in third grade, her parents moved to a bigger town. In this town, she was bullied by her classmates because she was top of the class in math. Not only she was bullied, but once she got beaten up by a group of kids. This traumatic experience tattooed in her mind that it's not okay to stand out. And this is not something that she's consciously thinking about. It's not like she wakes up in the morning and she thinks, oh, I should not stand out, or oh, I don't have talents. No, this is not even a conscious thought. She wasn't even aware of it. However, deep down, she felt that it's not safe to demonstrate her talents and to stand out. Once we worked to transform this belief, she was able to shine and develop a working personal brand for herself. It's not just traumatic experiences that form our personal myth. For example, in my family, there was this belief that it's very dangerous to have your own business, to be an entrepreneur. This is why I was, as at the beginning of my entrepreneurship career, not very successful, and I always felt like people around me were doing better, that I was part of the loser group. So I had taken in the family belief that doing business is hard and that only the people who lie, who are in a way not honest, succeed in business. Why was this belief in my family? Well, my parents started a business in the 90s in Bulgaria. This was the time when Bulgarian mafia and crime thrived. So within their context, this was to very big degree true, but it's not true in my context. If we look at the girl who believed she had no talents, in this very, very specific context, in third grade, with a group of kids who were complete assholes, standing out was not safe in this very situation, but she thought it's not safe to stand out in any situation. My parents had a business in the 90s. I started my business in 2018, so many years later. See how the beliefs that we get from our family, from our community, from painful experiences. They might be true for this very short episode in time and space, but they're not overly true. However, our brain does something very interesting. When a very painful experience happens, or when we take in beliefs from our family and community, something called analytical shutdown happens. Our analytical skills shut down, and we make a very big emotional idea about the world. And even though this idea might not be rational, we take it and it becomes our operating system. The way to think about our personal myth is our operating system. By now, you must be thinking, why are we talking about this? Here is the thing. When you start achieving a goal, when you start working towards financial freedom, designing a career that you love, or any type of success, even relationship success, your personal myth or your operating system is what drives results. So let's say, for example, that you wish to be an entrepreneur. However, somewhere in your personal myth, you're not confident enough or you believe you don't deserve big success. This is your operating system. And within this operating system, entrepreneurial success is an application that it's not compatible. Have you ever tried to install an app on a device which doesn't work with this app? For instance, you might have an iMac and there might be an app which only works for non-Mac computers, for non-Apple computers, so they're not compatible. This is exactly what happens with our personal bit. And it's not obvious, it's not something that you're consciously thinking about or that you can analyze just by thinking. Those are these underlying beliefs that diminish us, that make us small. And all self-help culture, and here I would agree, says that the biggest limiting beliefs is I'm not enough. Here I would like to make a pause and an important announcement. If you have experienced any traumatic event, any trauma in your past, recent or distant past, please work with a therapist and do not take this program as a substitute for therapy. I have been doing therapy for over 5 years just to overcome some of the issues that I have with business partners, and I have been doing family constellation, and it works miracles for me. So my message here is this program, it's not a substitute for therapy. Now let's move forward towards why are we talking about this and what are the things that you can do to transform your personal myth. First of all, let me be very clear. By transforming your limiting beliefs, behavior models, and moods, what you're doing is you're really clearing the path to success. Imagine this in the following way. Your goal is to be a successful entrepreneur and have financial freedom so that you can do whatever you want by the time you're 30. And your goal is here. Now, there is a road which goes towards this goal, and there is this big roadblock, and it's so big that you can actually not continue. However, this roadblock, it's not visible. In this metaphor, I think it's becoming clear that your limiting beliefs are roadblocks towards your success, but in life they're not so visible. So you might be stuck somewhere, or you might not be getting results, or you might be struggling with a particular challenge, or even feeling not motivated because deep down you don't believe success is achievable. And this is how your limiting beliefs, behaviors, and emotions stop you from success. Now, before we move forward in our program, we want to explore what are these obstacles and remove them. And the big question is, how do we do that? Before I tell you how do we do that, let me emphasize how not to do it. I have worked with over 3,000 coaching clients. I myself go to at least 2 big trainings each year where I meet different people who are on the path of business or professional development. And I have spoken with thousands of entrepreneurs on conferences, workshops, communities. I have been part in each major community for entrepreneurs in my country and in some in Europe. And I am saying this by work as it comes from working and communicating with a lot of people. There is one way which you cannot overcome your limiting beliefs. This is by overanalyzing them and pretending to be a psychologist and constantly talking about it and analyzing what are your limiting beliefs. I have met so many people who, instead of transforming what is stopping them, prefer to analyze it, prefer to talk about it, prefer to use it as an excuse. All of these are strategies to run away from the problem. Why do we run away from the problem? Because limiting beliefs and limiting behaviors and limiting emotions are always associated with pain. Let me say this again. All our limitations are associated with pain. So if we want to become some sort of limitation, we have to experience certain psychological pain. And by now, you have heard me say that our brain has evolved to avoid pain and to avoid pain at all costs. So when people analyze and talk about their limiting beliefs, what they're trying to do is to avoid the pain of overcoming them. So the way not to overcome your limiting beliefs is to overanalyze them. In reality, there are cases in which you can overcome a belief without overanalyzing it and without understanding the full story. Now, what are ways in which you can overcome limiting beliefs? First of all, it's true that becoming aware of a limiting belief and being able to define it, it's helpful. But this is where this ends. Defining the belief and how it manifests in our life is enough. No more analysis, no more over talking about it because we're feeding it and we're giving it more energy. Once we have identified a belief, the best way to work to transform it is through physical or body activities, such as dynamic meditation, vagus nerve exercises, and some other exercises which I will show you in separate video when I'm in my sports gear and I am demonstrating how you can do that. So the first and most effective way to do this is it's through working with our body. All right, this is the first and the most important and the most effective way. The second way is through storytelling. Now, I told you that analysis is not helpful, but storytelling is much different than analysis. Storytelling helps us make sense of the world and make sense of our experience. So we can overcome our limiting beliefs through storytelling. And the third and probably most potent and most powerful way in which to overcome limiting beliefs is to change our behavior. Now, frankly, both working with your body and working with storytelling, it's just the first step. And the second step is to change your behavior. And let me give you an example. I was bullied throughout high school and middle school and even elementary school, and I grew up with the idea that I'm ugly. And of course, this is not something that I would wake up and consciously think about. No, it was just kind of some underlying feeling. Actually, as a protective mechanism, I developed a big ego. So this big ego was supposed to protect me from the idea that I'm ugly and that I'm not good enough. Growing up with this idea in my early 20s, I've put way too much effort into proving myself. I actually went into a very, very bad burnout where I would wake up in the middle of the night and have very high pulse. My heart was racing, and I even went in hospital for 3 days because of this burnout. And it was all because I wanted to prove myself as I didn't believe I was good enough. So the underlying belief was my face and my body are not pretty, so I should work super hard to prove that I deserve to be in this place. And also, one of my favorite hobbies is dancing. It took me 15 years to go on stage and demonstrate my dance skills because somewhere on the back of my mind I thought I was not pretty enough to be a dancer on stage. This is one example of how limiting beliefs affect our life. As I told you, the best way to work through it is with body exercises and storytelling. What I did is I did a lot of dynamic meditations, which helped me, and I did some vagus nerve activities, which also helped me. And I've done some storytelling too. But what really finished the process of transforming and moving past this limiting belief was to change my behavior. So, one of the first behaviors that I changed is I stopped overworking in attempt to prove myself. I did only what was enough for the tasks and I set healthy boundaries to proving myself. And of course, I went on stage and I have been on stage dancing for 3 years now. In summary, our limiting beliefs, behaviors, and emotions are what is diminishing us and what is making us smaller. And in our road to our goal, those are invisible road obstacles that keep us stuck or that prevents us from from achieving our goals and dreams. However, there is an added value in overcoming limiting beliefs, emotions, and behaviors, and this is that we become more us. We connect to that authentic self which is in love with life, which has healthy confidence, which believes he or she deserves, and it's connected to its own personal power. In transforming limiting beliefs, we become more us, happier, healthier, and more disciplined. Because believe it or not, a lot of the times people are not lazy, they don't lack discipline, there is just a limiting belief or behavior model which is preventing them from boldly and bravely taking actions. The two most potent ways of overcoming limiting beliefs is by working with your body, and one of the ways is also body scan and through storytelling. Here, I would like to emphasize that you have separate rituals and protocols specifically designed to help you overcome limitations. Lastly, the goal and the way we know that we have accomplished transforming our limitations is by changing our behavior and showing up in new ways in the world. I hope that what you take from today's video is that analyzing and being a psychologist without diploma will not help you. It will only make things worse. And to understand that all those limitations are not something bad that someone did to you, although this could be the case in some situations, but are just things that you have experienced and internalized and are related to pain. Once you leave this pain, a lot of energy is released. Our brain has evolved to run away from pain, but once you embrace the pain that comes with the limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough. Once you allow yourself to experience that pain, but also move past it, so much power and joy comes into your life. And I really hope that you're going to embrace the task of exploring your personal myth, leaving behind the ideas and beliefs that don't work for you anymore, connecting to the needs which were not met, going through some pain, but also in overcoming it, becoming a much happier and thriving individuals. I will see you in the next video where we are going to go through some very specific steps for overcoming internal obstacles or limiting beliefs.